A lot has happened to people financially during COVID. Some good, some bad, but clearly some anxiety that people didn't expect. We're going to talk with Dr. Joyce Marter today. She's a psychotherapist for more than 20 years, the author of the Financial Mindset Fix. It's a mental fitness program for an abundant life, and we're going to talk about mental wealth. I think it's time for us to put our hands around what is really going on inside of the mental and financial world together. Enjoy the conversation. Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Joe Clark. So happy to have you along. Hey, we have got a special guest today, Dr. Joyce Marter. She has been a psychotherapist for more than 20 plus years and has really taken it upon herself to look at what's going on in this financial world as we look at the challenges that we have with the anxiety that was created, I think, in two forms. One of it was a natural progression. As you know, I've talked about on this show before, as people age, we get to the point where we don't want to spend our money, some out of fear, but many times it's really we don't need the money because we've already shown the discipline or the ability to save. And secondly, we don't want to hurt our baby. We don't want to pull money out of the account and let that statement go down. Well, Dr. Joyce is all about helping us understand that it's okay. It's okay to look at life and enjoy what's going on. You can find out more from her if you read her book, The Financial Mindset Fix. I think it's a great book. It's on my Kindle. You know, that's the only way that I read. So I made sure that it was able to go in that direction. But she's really going to talk about the differences between the relationship with wealth and mental health, or what she likes to call mental wealth. Dr. Joyce, we are very excited to have you to the program, and just honored that you're taking the time to be with us and our audience today.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. And please call me Joyce. I'm actually not a doctor, although my brother likes to joke that he's Dr. Joyce's brother. I'm a master's level psychotherapist, so Joyce is just great, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are happy to have you along. I figure anybody that made it through the Ohio State and then in Northwestern, ought to get some kind of credential that's there. I know at the end of your name, it's LCPC. So what's that stand for?
Licensed Clinical Professional Counselor.
Okay.
And go
All right.
Buckeyes.
And go so we're more of a Buckeye than a North. Okay, I get it. I get it. As a Big Ten guy, I went to IU and taught at Purdue. So, it's there's a little bit of understanding of what's going on. So tell us what you think's going on in this world today. Not, you don't have to talk about the economics, but what's going on in the mind of most people who look, act, and smell like me?
Well, Joe, we already were in a world mental health epidemic prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic has added fuel to the fire. So I've been giving corporate trainings nationally and some even globally several times a week for audiences across the country. And people are experiencing a lot of mental health symptoms. So people who've had mental health issues such as depression or anxiety in the past, they're resurfacing. And some people who've maybe never dealt with those challenges before are experiencing depression, anxiety. There's an increase in substance abuse, relationship conflict. And so I'm hoping the silver lining is that people are willing to have honest conversations about mental health. And as you know, I'm really interested in the connection between mental health and financial health, which I call mental wealth.
So it is interesting to me as we think about this. And you've not listened to the program long enough to know, but I believe everything began to change with defined contribution programs and how people ended up looking at statements and the assets as opposed to income that you would have normally had in terms of a pension. And I will be the first to admit, anybody who knows me knows that there is very limited anxiety in my life, and I am by all definition an extrovert until COVID. So I'm watching this progression in my life, and wondering if it's occurring as a natural process of age or COVID. As you said, it was a combination of the two. What should people be thinking? What should I be thinking to try to figure out how to look at this new world?
Well, several things, Joe. I think certainly you're not alone. We've had such a decrease in our socialization and access to social support, and our whole lifestyles have changed. You mentioned loving to travel and not being able to do so. And so we're having to re examine our lives and our values and how we want to live, and we're having to live differently. And I know as a therapist that transition, change, and uncertainty are very challenging for folks. I'm envious of you for not dealing with anxiety. I don't know if you know this, but therapists, we specialize in our own issues. And I have dealt with anxiety and financial anxiety at different points in my life. And so now I practice what I preach and want to share with others how to manage these types of challenges. So I would say, number one, to implement a mindfulness practice. And mindfulness has been around for thousands of years. The research really shows it improves both mental health, physical health, and financial health. So practices such as meditation, deep breathing, anything that's going to keep you rooted in the here and now instead of ruminating about the past or worrying about the future is going to improve your mindset. Two other really important features are practicing self-care. When we're going through so much change and stress and transition, it's extra important for us to really take a close look at our health and wellness, making sure that we're having proper nutrition, rest, exercise, but also psychological aspects of self-care. Are we practicing self-compassion, self-forgiveness? Is our lifestyle healthy? Are we unplugging from technology? Are we connecting with nature? These are really important for our overall well-being. And then also accessing support. If we're not seeing our loved ones in the way that we normally do, or our friends and colleagues, we need to come up with different systems for accessing the support that we need and deserve. When I give talks across the country, most people, predominantly, it's like 90% every talk I they say that they need more emotional support. So this is across the board. And I think we need to have these conversations and give people the tools to help deal with all these challenges.
Hey man, I'm all in favor of that. I will confession number two. I'm a recent anxiety sufferer. I already fessed up to that one, but a lot of people don't know. During 2008 and 2009, I got into this industry, the financial services world, 2 weeks before the crash in '87. And I kind of had a Superman complex, if you will, where people believed I had all the answers. I thought I had all the answers, and then '08 and '09 hit, and it was just a very, very trying time. I was awake for 30 some days, blew out my pituitary
Whoa.
glands, according to the medical world. But I quit watching news in '09. And, so people wonder how I'm able to do what I do. And it's because I've got a great team of 38 people that, that they watch the news. They do all of that part. But I stay out of this emotional part. But when I sit down and I do the family updates with the people that I care about, they have genuine concerns and worries over change that are coming, and things that are against our value system to a large degree that we believe in. So what would you, I connecting with nature, I'm a hiker, I like that. And you're an alpaca girl. So I get all of that stuff, but what would you tell my 62-year-old who's listening to this right now, who's thinking about separating from the workforce, who needs to understand, how to deal and cope with what's going on?
Well, Joe, I so appreciate your comments, and I can identify on a number of levels. In the 80s, my father worked as an executive in the automotive industry, and he was laid off and was unemployed during most of my adolescence and experienced tremendous financial anxiety despite having achieved a very successful career. And I seem, by nature and nurture, we kind of learn our money scripts from our family of origin. I developed that financial anxiety. And as an entrepreneur in the crash of '08, I experienced cash flow hell in my outpatient mental health company, Urban Balance, that I founded. And I laid awake at night worrying about how I was going to pay my staff and my rent. And so I use tools from psychology. And that's what I recommend to people today. And my book, The Financial Mindset Fix, is filled with empirically supported tools and techniques, practical tips to manage financial anxiety and welcome a life of abundance and prosperity. So you talked about detachment. So you're really smart that you separated yourself from the news because you identified that the news was anxiety provoking and overwhelming for you. And I think this is true for most of us. I certainly recommend that people are informed, but maybe do as you've done and have a team, maybe not of 38 people, but people advising you, or check in with the news once or twice a day, maybe in the morning and maybe in the late afternoon, but not too close to evening. And certainly don't be watching the news all day long. Other detachment strategies include compartmentalization, it's a psychological practice that is a healthy mindfulness practice of detachment, of kind of scanning your body, your mind and your body for any worries or thoughts or fears, and being able to visualize putting them in a container and setting them aside. When my business was in that very difficult state, I had to keep going. I couldn't let it make me fold. I thought I was going to have to file bankruptcy, but I had to separate myself from those worries and zoom out and look at the bigger picture. If we ride the ups and downs of the market, we're going to experience those roller coaster waves of emotion. But if we can find a place of emotional equanimity or calmness or groundedness, an ability to kind of in a healthy way, separate from our emotions, observe them, honor them as normal, but take care of ourselves so that we can move through those challenges. That's what I teach in my book. I had the pleasure of meeting William Green, who's the author of Richer, Happier, Wiser. And he wrote a book. That book is about his interviews with some of the most successful investors in the world. And I found it really interesting that he found some psychological characteristics that they had in common. And they are the same mindsets that I discuss in my book. Very, very similar. Things like equanimity, that emotional regulation or calm that I think is really important for people to have when making financial decisions. And he also talks about compassion and connection to family and some of the characteristics that you described in your audience.
If I thought about money like most people thought about money, there's no way I could move daily with $650 million that I'm responsible for.
Right.
There's 1,081 families. I can't think about money like other people think about money, or I wouldn't be able to do what it is I do.
And I was talking about detachment, and that's risk tolerance is an aspect of healthy detachment. And when I was sharing that I was experiencing a lot of financial anxiety around 2008, I was talking to my friend about how I had a $50,000 loan for my business and had to put a lien on my home. And she said, would it help you if I told you that my husband has 300 million in loans? And he's a very successful commercial realtor or real estate broker. And so that was really helpful to me because I think in order to be a success, you have to tolerate that responsibility, and it can be very scary for some people, and so they don't pursue that level of growth or responsibility. So you've learned these psychological characteristics, and they are really important. We each have to look at our relationship with money and our psychology of money, how our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors shape our reality financially. And as I was mentioning in my discussions with author William Green, who wrote Richer, Happier, Wiser, we were talking about some of the common characteristics of people who are financially successful. And he found that by interviewing investors, and I found that by treating thousands of therapy clients and seeing what are these common characteristics that lead to a successful life. And to me, a successful life is having mental well-being, physical well-being, supported relationships, work-life balance, and financial prosperity. And if you're looking at retirement, you're looking at philanthropy, you're looking at your legacy, caring for your family, what mark do you want to leave on the world, and how do you want to live this chapter of your life? And so I love, one time in one of my speaking engagements, I had a woman come up to me at the end of my talk and she said, "Joyce, I wish I heard you speak 40 years ago because I'm 70 and it would have changed my life." And a few minutes later, another woman came up to me and she said, "I'm 73 and I'm retiring and I'm so happy I heard your talk because it's going to help me plan the next chapter of my life." And I thought, what a difference. And who do you think is going to have the happier, more abundant life, on the other end of that? So that's the type of work that I like supporting people in doing.
That's beautiful. All right, here's the deal. We're going to end this today, but I have certainly appreciated your time. I think our next conversation, and I think there should be one, is probably one over the scarcity mentality and why that is so disruptive to people. I think we can both speak to that for different reasons, but I enjoyed the conversation, so I will go ahead and just wrap this up with Joyce Marter. I've truly enjoyed the conversation. 20 plus years, psychotherapist, Ohio State, Northwestern grad, and most importantly, an entrepreneur. She built Urban Balance, was able to sell it, survived some of the craziness that we've seen in the economic world, and the author of The Financial Mindset Fix. So it's on my Kindle. It ought to be on yours. If you got any questions, you can always reach us at yourlifeafterwork.com. 800-928-4001. And don't forget to go to joyce-marter.com. You can find out more about her. She is on Facebook and all the social media places. So anything you want to know, you can get it there. Joyce, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Joe.